We are the first generation of women able to say yes to our careers, our families, and ourselves. Our foremothers were forced to choose between caretaking others versus caretaking themselves. Welcome to the movement of women committed to healing these patterns so we can rewrite the feminine legacy for the little girls watching us now. You're listening to the Refuse to Choose podcast with your host, master coach, mother of two, and veteran entrepreneur, Sophia Hyde.
Hello! I'm so excited to be here. Welcome to the very first episode of the Refuse to Choose podcast. Hello to the women who are juggling 10 balls, trying not to let the glass ones drop. Hello to the women torn between which self-care to actually choose today. Do you sleep and get a full 8 hours, or do you do your workout? Hello to the women who are the dreamers. You're balancing feeling gratitude and contentment for the life that you live today while also continuing to feel so much ambition and aspiration for the goals that you have and you want to be pursuing in your life. Hello to the women drowning in guilt, whether it is that you're not spending enough time with your kids or not enough hours working or not enough hours talking or taking care of your parents or your time with your clients, your spouse, like all the ways that you might feel like you're not doing enough or showing up enough. Hi, and I just want to let you know you're going to be okay. I've got you. I'm going to teach you how to turn that guilt into joy, how to support yourself, how to turn that uncertainty of which self-care to choose into a rare occurrence versus a daily problem. The purpose of this podcast is to help women entrepreneurs take care of themselves, their families, and their clients to build a beautiful life that is rich and full with their ability to chase those big, audacious goals and not lose sight of the priorities and the values that mean the most to them. Now, for this intro episode, I'm not going to be doing much teaching per se. I want to cover the who, what, when, where, and why of the purpose of this podcast so that you have a good idea if this is the right community for you, if you have found the place you belong, and what to give you a heads up of what to expect is to come, because this is going to be a journey that we're going to be walking alongside together. This is really a movement that we're choosing to participate in. And so welcome. Okay, I'm going to actually, even though like in the who, what, when, where, why, the why is the end, I actually think it's the most important part. So we're going to start there. Why does this podcast exist? Because we are part of a movement of women who are rewriting the female legacy. Each generation of women has been carrying forward a baton. We're part of this marathon of improving the quality of life for women everywhere. And the task that has been given to us for our generation is to prove that being in business can include both rest and success. It's important to know that in one of the things that really weighs heavy on my heart is in 2025, a study was done that showed they looked at a lot of different business owners all over the world, and women had a 47% more likely chance of closing their business due to a family or personal obligation than a man did. And although this was a worldwide study, the numbers are the same in the United States, which is where I live. That number bothers me. That number reflects a woman somewhere who had a dream, an ambition, a goal, a business that she was so excited to start, and then didn't feel like she could keep it going while, name the personal thing, taking care of her kids in the way that she wanted to. So she quit to stay home, or she needed to be a caretaker to her aging parents, or she needed to show up in some other way. A lot of times what happens is when women step into entrepreneurship, the thing about owning a business is that it never shuts off. You can think about it all the time. And so you like leave this job that you could check in and out of for the 20, 30, 40 hours a week you worked it, or 50, 60, 70, trust me, plenty of people are working more than that, right? But you can like leave it there because you're an employee to somebody. But when you're an entrepreneur, the ticker never shuts off. So it feels like you're working 24/7. And then they feel like with this always on my brain, I can't also handle the mental load of my family and myself. And so the business turns into a burden and they feel like they have to close it because it's the only way that they can thrive. And that's not true. I'm sure that there are circumstances where that was necessary, right? But for the most part, it is the reason this number is so much higher in women than men is because women are expected to be the caretakers of society, to do massive amounts of free labor. And we also don't really know how to shut that ticker off in our brains. And so a lot of our episodes and our conversations are going to center around lessening that, simplifying your life, decreasing a lot of that mental load, and learning to balance it all so that you can really embody everything that you want to be in your life. Somebody who takes care of herself and runs a thriving business and shows up for her family in the way that she wants to and isn't drowning because you've learned that your to-do list is not your brain anymore. You've learned how to separate that. And I'm going to help you with that. There's this one, I just had a flashback to a conversation. Gosh, if this does not embody the female experience, I just had this flashback to like 5 years ago. I was at lunch with a friend and we were meeting up with a mentor who was a man in his like 70s and who's great. Like I have so much respect for him. That's why I asked him to be a mentor, right? He's done really cool things in the world and he saw something in me and was willing to spend some time and invest his time into me, which I'm so much gratitude. But there was this one thing he said to me one time that left me so flabbergasted that I just didn't even have a comeback. He said he had raised 2 adult sons. And he looked at me and my friend and he said, you know, sometimes I just regret that we stopped trying after the 2 because I wish I would have had a daughter, which sounds lovely. But then he finished the sentence with, because it would be nice as I'm getting older to know that there's somebody that's going to take care of me in my old age. Ugh. Bang my head against the wall. What? Like your sons aren't capable of caring for you? Like you would need a daughter to be your... Mm-hmm. And that's not saying that I or my sister are not going to take care of my own parents. I'm just saying, what a freaking stereotype. Are you kidding me right now? If this does not embody the female story, right? So let's move on. One thing to be clear. This is obviously a very female-centered podcast, but this is not one where we're going to hate on men. I've actually done an intense amount of studying on the patriarchy. And the reality is we all lose, right? When inside, the men are losing too. Okay, I am married to a man. I am raising a son. I have a father and a brother. I've worked with clients who are men. This is not about man bashing or man hating. This is a reality that the way that society has been designed for a long time has not set any of us up for success. And so, yes, can men do more? Yeah, and a lot of them are. I mean, actually, my husband handles more of the domestic responsibilities around our house than I do. But I'm just saying, we're going to focus on the parts that we can control. And we're going to rewrite the narrative by choosing our boundaries and our time and our energy and focusing on what we can do. But this is, we focus on what we can control around here, okay? And that's not going to mean that, like, for example, when we talk about how that story I just told you, that women are like expected to be the caretakers. I'm not saying that we need to stop being the caretakers or that men should be the caretakers. That's not what this is about. It's actually about saying yes and how about I own a business and take care of my family in the way that I want to? And also my husband will be helping, right? I watched when my grandmother was in our home dying of cancer, like my dad helped bathe her, right? Like there was this is not, this is about shared responsibility, but also just the main initiative, like the main focus here is that we are going to step into who we want to be and move through the world the way that we want to. And we will let others feel however they want to feel about that. Okay, moving on. Another part of the why, which I've kind of touched on, is the mental load. This is really huge. So to all of the women out there listening right now who are balancing motherhood as well. Plenty of my clients don't have kids or have raised adult children, but specifically right now, I want to talk to the women who are in the middle of raising children and owning a business at the same time. I am with you. I'm walking alongside you. My kids are 8 and 12, but I want you to know you're not crazy. All right, hear me. You're not crazy. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. What you're doing is nearly impossible. We will have conversations around the invisible load that women carry, especially mothers, and the mental load of motherhood. I have many certifications. One of them is I am a facilitator for Fair Play, which talks about the equalizing the home, right? And so I have a lot to say about this. But it's important for you to know that this ticker is running of all of the mental load you're carrying to keep your house running, because by default, most women are the CEOs of their home. And also as a business owner, so shout out to all my small business owners out there, you have that same ticker going because you have to know what every employee is doing. So I have clients who are maybe not a business owner, but they're C-suite, right? They're a CEO with 700 employees or running a large organization, right? And they have that same ticker as a small business owner because you have to know what's going on in every single department. When somebody asks you, where are we at with marketing? Where are we at with operations? Where are we at with the financial vision for X, Y, and Z? You don't get to pass it off and be like, I actually don't know. Let me look into that. Let me see. You can't check out of a part of your business. Sure, you can hire employees who can spend more time in the weeds than you do. But as far as your brain, your mental load, you will always have to have a pulse on every single component of your business. And so then when you take this business mental load and the mental load of motherhood, and then you put them on the same person, it's too much. It's fucking nuts. And this is why so many women feel overwhelmed and they're drowning and all these other feelings. And you're not wrong. But here, I want to give you hope. Stay with me. That rant was not to discourage you. It was to give you hope because it actually can be a lot lighter. It can be easier. There is a better way to move through the world. You can, whether you are a CEO or a business owner, you can carry all of that mental load and be at the top of your game while showing up in motherhood, and it can feel a lot lighter. There are ways to manage it. But what's the reason that this podcast exists, the reason that the work I do in the world is so important, is because the tools that are going to get you there are not going to come to you innately because you are going to have to break so many of the programming that has been put into your brain by society, schools, systems, family systems, religious systems, like all these ways that told us how we should be, how we should operate, what we think should look like, how we should manage our time or manage our tasks or whatever. There's all this programming of how you think you're supposed to move through the world. And the only way that you will be able to fully embody this business owner version of yourself is you're going to have to shed a lot of that and create a new way you move through the world. And I'm going to help you do that. All right. Here's what we will not be doing. So that's what we are here for. What we are not here for. Number one thing we're not doing is martyrdom. Like that's done. That is done. The women as martyrs is this idea of like constantly self-sacrificing themselves. And I've seen this so much in the generations before us, and I'm not even faulting them or saying like they were wrong for that or anything. It's the reality. In order for them to break those glass ceilings and carry the weight of being a mother at the same time that they were in corporate America, they really did have to self-sacrifice themselves. And so it got normalized that a mother is always last on the to-do list. She takes care of everybody else first. The mom's the last one to get any of her needs met. God forbid she have a freaking hobby or something she does for herself, right? And so this idea was born that we have totally normalized women, and especially mothers, as the martyrs. They give up everything for everybody else. Not here. That is not how we are moving through the world. So that's something we're not doing. Another thing that we are not going to stand for is you thinking in any way, shape, or form that you're too much. Here, in this community, in this space, that's not possible. You cannot be too driven, too loud, or even too quiet, or too ambitious, or too anything for me. If you have ever been made to feel like you are too much, you want too much, you need too much, you are too much, you're intimidating, all of these things, I have spent a lifetime being told that, and have done so much of that work to realize that that's not actually a reflection of me, right? Like, if I'm too much, then I guess maybe you feel like you're not enough, but like, that's not my problem. I didn't tell you weren't enough, right? Just go put on some sunglasses if I shine too bright for you. As Jake Wesley Rogers says in one of my favorite songs is Pluto, hate on me, hate on me, hate on me. You might as well hate the sun for shining a little too bright. Hello, your problem, not mine. You're allowed to take up space here. And we will be talking a lot about you taking up more space. And if you're like, whoa, I'm an introvert, Sophia, I don't want to be taking up space, you're welcome. A bunch of my clients are introverts. And I'll help you find a beautiful way to move through the world where you feel fully embodied in the way that you want to move, that feels right for your energy and the way you want to show up. Last thing I want to say to the mothers in the room is, are you aware that the greatest indicator of a child's success is dun 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 beep? You know what it is? Boom, boom, boom. Their mother's happiness. Their mother's happiness. When a child grows up in a home with a mother who is taking care of herself, who lives in joy, who is grounded, who is secure, they are so much more likely to be successful than a mother who is sacrificing everything and exhausted and tired, neglecting herself, and miserable, insecure, probably managing a whole life around her insecurities, right? So the best thing you can do for your kids is choose yourself, and not in this like selfish way, but in a beautiful way. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. One other quick part on the who side of what we're going to cover in this quick podcast today is if you, oh wait, no, that was my why. Now we're moving on to who. Sorry, misread my notes. Moving on to the who. All right, who is this podcast for? If you haven't picked up already, I've kind of touched on it. This podcast is for ambitious, goal-oriented women who want to chase their desires. And it is not exclusively for moms. As I shared before, plenty of my clients don't have kids, or they're past raising their kids. They're all adults now. But being in business as a woman is a unique experience. Now, are men welcome here? Of course. Come on. If you can handle conversations about the matriarchy, you're welcome to join us. We will definitely be talking a lot about work-life balance. And so if we've got male entrepreneurs who want to learn how to fully embody themselves and show up in a beautiful way, come on and have a seat. If you are not currently an entrepreneur, that's okay. Like, you're welcome too. I don't care if you're a stay-at-home mom or you're an employee somewhere, like, that's welcome. Have a seat at the table. Just know that everything that I cover and the lens through which I choose the stories that I share and the topics I coach on are going to be centered around the female entrepreneur experience. This podcast is also for people who value for lack of a better word, like proper work-life balance. I do believe in balance. A lot of people are like, balance doesn't exist. We're going to talk about it because it actually can. Just like, how do you define your balance? What does it look like to live with intention? But it is not, this is not a place. Like, if you want to come here for hustle culture, if you want somebody to like tell you to like grind all day and you can sleep with when you're dead, like, wrong place. That's not this one. I did that in my early 20s. I hit burnout for the first time at 24, and BT dubs, that was before I even had kids. I overextended myself and said yes to everything and had my first, like, what would you call it? Like a midlife crisis at 24. That story will come out later. It's not for today, but there's, if you're looking for like a hustle grind conversation, there's plenty of dude bros out there who will do that for you. This isn't the space. For the dreamers, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm not here to convince anybody. Like, if you feel so content in your life and you don't want anything to change, listening to a podcast by a life coach is probably not the right podcast for you, because I'm assuming that my listeners are coming here with an intent to change something about their life. They're driven, they're hungry, they're ambitious, and they want to make their lives better. And at the same time, balance that, like, walking that tightrope of wanting everything that you are aspiring for and having these big audacious goals, and day to day living in the gratitude and the contentment of where you are right now. And I do believe we can hold both of those things at the same time. The other part of the who, so that's who the podcast is for. I'm not going to go too much in the who of who I am, because there's like an about page on my website if you want to read that. And my stories over time and through this podcast will come out naturally. But the short end of the stick is I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I started my first business when I was 20 years old. And it was photography that grew into photography, video, cinematography, because I'm married to a cinematographer. And we launched that business straight out of college and grew that. I continued to dabble in a couple of other ideas and take on a couple of other businesses. Then I took a pause and spent 4 years working in a nonprofit that served the small business community. And I shouldn't even say I really paused my businesses, because I just moved them to like part-time evening weekends type of thing. And then during that time, while I was employed for the nonprofit, I went through coach certification training and started my business. And I began coaching evenings and weekends and building my business on the side before I took it full-time in 2021. I have been a full-time life coach since 2021 and have worked with dozens and dozens of female entrepreneurs. When I first started my business, I was a general life coach. And so I have worked with all types of people, from teenagers to people in retirement, men, women, queer community. But really where I continued to find the work that lit me up the most was when I got to work with the female business owners and their success, their return on investment, the results they were getting were just so transformational. Over the last couple of years, I've almost exclusively worked with female entrepreneurs. And so I did have a podcast for 3 years. As of this recording, I have left it on the internet, and so you can still find it. It's called Your Favorite Self, if you'd like to binge a life coaching podcast. But I closed that earlier this year and started working on this new concept and idea, because I really would like, from this point forward, for the rest of my work to focus specifically on this demographic. You can go read on my about page, like the details of the type of training and things that I've been through. But I think it's funny because a lot of people care a lot about, like, what's your education? Why are you qualified to be a coach? And I did that stuff. I got the degree, the certification, and all the good stuff. But here's the reality of it. 90% of the results and transformation that my clients get comes from two places. One, my personal lived experience. And I think that this is when it comes to the coaching world, you want to be listening to somebody who has walked the walk, right? Who has done the thing you want to do. Because you can't read and take an academic approach to something that is such a lived experience. And so much of what actually helps my clients is not stuff I studied or read about or took a course on. It's the guidance. It's like going on a hike and in like a rough terrain, but hiring a guide who's done this 100 times and having them walk you up and be like, I'm familiar with this, been there, done that. Yep, this is normal. This is totally normal. I cannot tell you how many times I say to somebody, oh, this is completely normal. You're not alone. You're not crazy. This is a regular part of being a business or being human or being a woman or being a mother. Like this, welcome to being normal. Welcome to being human. Here's what we do when that happens, right? Because I've been there, done that. So most of it is actually my lived experience that brings the most value. And the other thing that brings the most value is my ADHD. I was diagnosed at 34 years old, and now I'm about to turn 40. And I was undiagnosed for a long time. But the through line, here's something if you don't know a lot about ADHD, we have hyperfocuses. Our brain chases our curiosities. And so it's really easy for me to, yes. Do I get distracted easily? Yes. Do I have a hard time focusing? Yes. Except for if I'm really interested in it. Because if I'm interested and curious about something, I can hyperfocus for hours, way longer than the average person can. The problem is we don't always get to choose what our brains want to hyperfocus on or what our brains are curious about. And fun fact about Sophia Hyde, every hyperfocus that I have ever had I can remember this all the way back to being a teenager. My brain has always been fascinated with human behavior. Why do we do what we do? And so when I see something that is peculiar, it doesn't make sense to me out in the world, whether it is a celebrity or a real person I know, somebody I share life with, somebody who is somebody that somebody else knows, every single thing I've ever hyper-focused on, the through line is I wanted to know, why did they do what they did? What was the motivating factor? Where did that come from? What behavior created that result? And so much of what delivers the return on investment for my clients is this like decades of my hyper focuses and being like, when they come to me and say, why I know what to do and I'm just not doing it. I'm like, oh, I got you. Let's talk about it. It's probably one of these 5 things. I know exactly, like we pinpoint it, we fix it, we move on. Because at some point that was a puzzle I just needed to solve. And that's where a lot of the things that I've learned have come from. All right. Moving on to the what. What should you expect in this podcast? More than anything else, this podcast is going to be chock full of stories. A lot of them mine, because I have full consent to share all of my secrets. But as my clients are willing to share the things they have overcome, or guests, I have incredible friends in my life, and wonderful, incredible humans that have crossed my path that I cannot wait to introduce you to. And the reason that I'm primarily focusing on stories is that that's what the human brain latches onto. Will I do episodes teaching you specific tools and resources and ideas? Of course I will. But the way that our brains work is they're going to stick at such a higher level when they're attached to a story. And that's like, I do have a book. It's called Unleash Your Favorite Self. And the reason that it's 50% memoir and 50% tools is because if I just wrote a book giving you all these coaching tools of how I created my favorite life, that would be really boring. But when I laid out all my dirty laundry and said, here's where I completely fucked up, here's the mess I made, and then here's how I cleaned it up, now you have an image and an example of that tool in real life. And then it's so much easier for you to take that tool and apply it to yourself. So I'll be bringing you lots of stories. We will be spending on this podcast, you can expect us to spend a ton of time on mindset work, thought creation, ideas, the way your brain works. And the reason is because there is no tool that you have in your business that is going to be more powerful than your brain. Your business will never be able to outgrow your personal growth. And the most powerful personal growth you can invest in is your brain. It is your mind. Because what we know, what psychology has taught us, is what you're thinking, your thoughts create your emotions. So your emotions, it's how you're feeling. Based on how you're feeling, you will choose certain behaviors. And your behaviors create your results. Now, a lot of times when people want to change the results they're getting in their personal life, the results they're getting in their business, to change their results, they start looking at their behaviors. And we can coach and talk all day long about your behaviors. But the reality is those behaviors are a direct result of what you were thinking, because it created how you felt. And then based on how you felt, you chose those behaviors, right? So we're going to spend an incredible amount of time on mindset. A couple of other things that are sure to come up, they're inevitable because it comes up with 100% of my clients. We will definitely be working on changing the way we view time and task management and transmuting that into energy management, because it's way more effective. And so I'll teach you all of that. Of course, you cannot embody this work without boundaries coming up, but boundaries isn't just saying no. It's also knowing when to say yes. And so we're going to work through that. We're definitely going to spend a lot of time making your life easier. Is this stuff hard? Of course it's hard, but it can be easier. And part of that is because our brains typically, for most of us, tend to overcomplicate things. And honestly, this is totally a stereotype, but I'm not quoting some study. This is just my lived experience, having coached men, having a husband, a dad, a father, a brother, a son. My personal experience has been that men are way easier, way better at just keeping things simple, not overcomplicating it, not overthinking it. Is it a stereotype? Yes. Is there an exception to the rule? Of course. But overall, as women, we tend to overthink and overcomplicate. And of course, I have my theories and reasons of why that biologically came to be. But it is a reality. For the most part, we overcomplicate a lot of things. And so I'm going to help you. I have been the worst at this, and I still get caught up in it sometimes, but I'm going to teach you how to make things a lot simpler and how to not overcomplicate it so that you can relax into a more sustainable way of moving through your days and your weeks. Next up, the when and the where. This podcast will be weekly. It's going to drop on Wednesdays. Because I have already invested 3 years of my life maintaining a podcast. The first year, I made sure an episode dropped every single week. So I did 52 straight. And what I learned after that was I don't like it. I don't like it. I will be weekly, but there will be moments of rest. The holidays, a little over the summer. If I'm come down with some sort of a sickness or I need to put somebody in my family first, I reserve full permission for this to be one of the plastic balls that gets to drop so that I can keep a glass one going. And so based on the experience I have from a previous podcast, you will probably get 40 to 45 episodes over the next year. And then lastly, if you, again, keeping things simple because you have things asking for your attention all over the place, yes, the episodes will be dropping on all of the major podcasting apps. But if you would like to have an email summary drop into your inbox each week so you know what we're talking about on that episode and then decide, is this one I want to listen to this week? You can get those email summaries by just subscribing to my weekly emails. The link for that is in the show notes. And also my weekly emails will include a Monday motivation story or inspiration or just something to like kick your week off in a positive way. And so if you want to be part of that, just drop your email into the link in the show notes. All right. To wrap this up, we've covered the who, what, when, where, and why of what you can expect out of this podcast. And the thing I want you to know is I shared why this podcast exists, but I think there's probably no greater reason or motivation for me personally than for you to know, fun fact about me. There is nothing, literally nothing in this world that brings me greater joy than seeing somebody else achieve their dreams. This, of course, it applies to my kids, but guys, I've cried when my clients over and over again have achieved their goals. And I also cry when strangers achieve their goals. For fun, I watch the Oscars, the Emmys, the Super Bowl. I'm not much into like sports, but I love a great championship because then somebody wins and it's their goal. And then like, oh my God, like the level of dopamine and serotonin that just like floods my body feels so good. I freaking love watching people achieve their goals, helping them achieve their goals. And I have found that I get way more satisfaction out of other people achieving their goals than my own. I've achieved almost everything I've ever set my mind to, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. I'm going to teach you how to have a much higher success rate in achieving your goals. But when it comes to mine, it just tends to feel like a box checked. Like I did it because it was inevitable. Like I kind of knew that I would, and it was like, cool. And I have become much better about celebrating, but I can't remember any goal I've achieved that like brought me to tears and satisfaction. But I have felt that way for so many clients and strangers. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have this podcast, because I want more people to achieve their goals, because selfishly, I get a fucking high off of it. So that's what we're here for. I love you guys, and I'm so excited to watch you achieve everything you've set your heart and your mind to without sacrificing yourself or your families. So let's do it. Bye.